It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
Another week of covert weather warfare on the orbiting asylum. Question: does there appear to be much more to Hurricane Melissa than meets the eye? Short answer, yes. Is it just a freak act of nature that the U.S. hurricane season was a complete bust and Jamaica took its most severe hit ever? No, not nature. Hurricane Melissa is one of the strongest storms ever recorded. That's from theeconomist.com. Category 5 storm makes landfall in Jamaica with catastrophic floods and wind. That's from NBC News. For the record, Hurricane Melissa was the equivalent of a Category 6 hurricane. Let's add this from the Weather Channel. Hurricane Melissa tied record strongest Atlantic Basin landfall. Let's ponder the following. What has radically changed in the last 22 years? Here's some statistics from 1980 to 2002. 3 storms only achieved what's called extreme rapid intensification status. Over the same length of time, 22 years, from 2003 to 2025, 18 storms achieved extreme rapid intensification status. That's a 600% increase. What primary factors in this equation are being criminally denied by governments and their agencies? Here's another question. Do the climate engineers have the capability to manipulate atmospheric pressure zones, primarily with ionosphere heater installations like HARP in Alaska, and by doing so, create conducive conditions for extreme rapid intensification? Short answer, yes. From extremetemps.com, this headline: Melissa just broke the record for having the driest eye in any tropical cyclone in all of recorded history. Imagine that. Yet another sign of manipulation and radically changing atmospheric chemistry, which doesn't bode well for the fate of the human race or the web of life as a whole. This next headline is certainly of interest from phys.org. Hurricane Melissa turned sharply to devastate Jamaica. How forecasters knew where it was headed. Yes, how do the scheduled weather script readers know? Could it be that they get their scripts from defense contractors Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, both neck deep in climate engineering everything, including atmospheric frequency transmitters like HARP? Please search geoengineeringwatch.org. Hurricanes. Examine the data loops in multiple posts that recorded the frequency transmission manipulations of hurricanes like Harvey, Ian, Helene, Michael, Maria, etc. Let's ponder that for a moment. Again, how do the scheduled weather script readers know so far in advance? For example, in the case of Hurricane Harvey, they knew 7 days in advance exactly where it was going to go, exactly where it was going to sit and spin for days, dumping 50 inches of rain. Again, please search geoengineeringwatch.org Hurricane Harvey. Look at the recordings of the frequency transmissions captured in real time that manipulated that storm to do exactly what it did. With all that in mind, this after impact MSN headline: Hurricane Melissa exits Jamaica after causing extensive damage. The government earlier said it hopes to reopen all of Jamaica's airports as early as Thursday of this week, only days after the storm hit. So after all the dust settled, Matrix Media went from catastrophic damage to, quote, extensive damage. Very big difference. And all of the airports are good to go in a couple days. Of course, all the damage is an absolute tragedy, but was climate engineering a core factor in the steering and strengthening of Melissa? Were there behind-the-scenes agendas and objectives being carried out? Question: could the forever meandering Hurricane Melissa that underwent, quote, extreme rapid intensification at the last moment have been a warning that was dialed back a bit at the last moment? Could perfectly symmetrical superstorm radar images we all saw have been modified to a degree, again, in order to serve specific behind-the-scenes agendas and objectives? Does the technology exist to manipulate storms on this scale? Again, the answer is yes. And keep in mind, the U.S. military started their hurricane manipulation operations with Project Cirrus in 1947, and in that initial publicized experiment, by dropping something like 100 kilos of material out of a single aircraft, they appeared to completely alter the trajectory of that storm. They later denied it, although damage was done in Georgia. There were lawsuits pending. They backpedaled very quickly. How much more can they do now? How much more? With all this in mind, let's examine a few puzzle pieces. First, this from CNN. Quote, Trump is trying to break China's monopoly on rare earths. This is related to Jamaica. Please stick with me. Trump stated, quote, in about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths, you won't know what to do with them, end quote. So, does Jamaica have significant rare earth mineral deposits? Short answer, yes. From the JamaicanObserver.com. Exploring Jamaica's untapped mineral potential. From that report, Jamaica has discovered significant rare earth mineral deposits. The discovery of this deposit is a significant development for Jamaica, as it could prove a substantial source of rare earth elements, which are crucial for various industries such as electronics, renewable energy, and aerospace. Wow. Imagine that. Who would have thought? Who would have knew there was vast petroleum reserves under Gaza, for example? Lots of examples around the world if one simply takes the time to investigate. All just coincidences, I'm sure. Next from Reuters, Trump says U.S. is prepared to aid Jamaica in the aftermath of Melissa. Question, will rare earth mineral confiscation be the price of that aid? Is it likely forthcoming, as Ukraine, as an example, has been forced to pay for its aid with the same rare earth minerals? Were any last-minute, behind-the-scenes bargains struck that may have played a part in the predicted catastrophic Melissa damage in Jamaica being reduced to, quote, extensive? And for the record, when the climate science cover-up actors rant about hurricanes being impossible to manipulate, when they claim that there is far too much energy in a hurricane to be impacted by humans, consider as an example, as I've pointed out previously, though a freight train can weigh over 200 million pounds, a single small child can alter their course completely with the pulling of a single lever, thus diverting the entire trajectory of a freight train that can weigh over 200 million pounds. The climate and atmosphere are far more malleable than has ever been officially acknowledged or disclosed for obvious reasons. Climate engineering, aka weather warfare, is the crown jewel weapon of the controllers, as I've stated so many times, the weapon with which they have been, can, and continue to bring populations to their knees without those populations ever even knowing they were under assault. This is Dane Wigington. You're listening to the weekly installment of the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Report, the End of the World as We Know It broadcast, brought to you by Geoengineeringwatch.org, the largest and most visited website in the world on the subject of global climate engineering operations, aka weather warfare and chemical and biological warfare due to the toxic elements. And we don't know what they're putting in the mix. At any given point, they can put anything they want in this mix. And when they're truly losing control of the narrative and control of populations, why would we think that they wouldn't put something far more lethal in a mix that already contains biological carrier platforms like polymer fibers and graphene? And that's what those two elements are used for, in addition to climate engineering patents, biological carrier platforms to carry a pathogen from the clouds to the ground. Why would we think they wouldn't do this when the historical record shows that they have already done it hundreds of times? According to the Washington Post, as far back as 1977, 239 open-air biological tests carried out by the U.S. military on innocent, unknowing U.S. populations. Even as of that date, how many more have been conducted since? And as far as our military goes, they're compartmentalized. They don't know what they're doing. They're simply told to carry out orders without questioning, and that's exactly what they do, and that needs to change. Our military brothers and sisters need to remember the oath they took to protect their countrymen from all threats, foreign and domestic. That includes within our own government. Quick footnote, for those that truly want to help sound the alarm, very effective climate engineering awareness-raising materials are available on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Full-color printed materials, which we pass on for less than our cost of producing and shipping. Geoengineering Watch shirts, restock sizes, new colors. These are all great conversation starters, and so often that is the key to the door. Moving on. More on the never-ending smoke and mirrors deception that global geoengineering operations are just on the drawing board and not an ongoing 80-year-long global catastrophe. From Politico.com, global cooling startup raises $60 million to test sun-reflecting technology. There must be so many Matrix minion controllers behind closed doors laughing it up, pretending that this is something they might do someday, when anybody that's not clinically blind can see this going on in our skies, raging in our skies. Next, from the canary.co.uk, U.S.-Israeli startup plan to block sun with airborne chemicals. The report then states, quote, listen carefully, if deployed at scale, geoengineering technologies would likely cause a range of harmful impacts, including changes in precipitation, uneven cooling and heating, and oxygen depletion, as well as degrade nutrient cycling, weaken the ozone layer, actually decimating it, it's near functional collapse now, and disrupt food webs with significant deleterious impacts on biodiversity and human well-being globally. End excerpt from this U.S.-Israeli startup plan on geoengineering. Wow, that sounds bad. Exactly like everything that has been unfolding and accelerating for decades, since immediately after World War II, when these programs were deployed at scale over the polar regions, ramped up ever since. This is a climate engineering Manhattan Project in our skies, and nearly the whole of populations and, of course, the controllers are pretending it's not really there. We're not really seeing what we're seeing. Absolutely mind-numbing. We're all drowning in a rapidly rising sea of pathological delusion, deception, and denial on a soon-to-be dead planet if we remain on the current course. Here's more. From the Union of Concerned Scientists, another report, inside the IPCC meeting in Lima, Peru, global climate science still matters, they say. Follow me through with this criminal climate engineering cover-up. From the report, the meeting comes at a pivotal moment for the international climate collaboration and just before the UN COP30 conference in Brazil. Stop there for a moment. For the record, the COP conferences are more smoke and mirrors, forcing countries behind closed doors to actively or passively participate in geoengineering operations. The Concerned Scientists report then continues, bringing together thousands of scientists, economists, engineers, and policymakers. The IPCC, that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, again, largest scientific panel ever created on any subject in human history, massive deception from that group, synthesizes the best available science and makes it usable for decision makers worldwide. Stop again. Sure they do. Quote, best available science. Translation, all the legions of cowards just mentioned actually represent the core of the greatest cover-up in human history, the cover-up of the climate engineering, weather, chemical, and biological elephant in our skies. More from the Union of Concerned Scientists report. After months of defending science, the IPCC, again, largest scientific panel in human history on any subject, settled years ago. It's a relief to be in a room, they say, of experts focused on advancing, not undermining the evidence. They then say international cooperation can continue to hold the line against disinformation. Wait, what? Holding the line against disinformation? No. These paid liars are towing the line for disinformation, the climate engineering official denial kind. So, am I in any way stating that the IPCC's climate predictions are also wrong? Yes, in fact, they are wrong, but in the opposite direction of what so many pathological deniers claim and want desperately to believe. What we actually face is exponentially worse than, quote, climate change. We face an abrupt climate collapse scenario that is already entering advanced stages, with climate engineering further fueling the process on top of 1,000 other forms of human-caused damage to the planet. Anyone that denies how horrifically our species, taken as a whole, has treated this once thriving planet is living in a very dark place. The human race has been a horrific steward of planet Earth. The current paradigm is, and always has been, a path to mathematically certain planetary omnicide. Time to change course or die soon. Moving on from SciTechDaily.com, more deception. Why dimming the sun might be the most dangerous climate fix yet. They say a new study shows that stratospheric aerosol injection, the jets flying around in our skies, spewing their toxic nanoparticles everywhere, that we're taught and trained and expected to believe is just, quote, condensation. Who could buy that at this point? Who could really buy that? Grid patterns in the sky one day, nothing the next, planes flying in all sorts of trajectories that have nothing to do with commercial air corridors, turning dispersions on and off. What does it take for people to use their God-given sense of reason? Stratospheric aerosol injection, that's what the SciTech Daily article refers to, so let's stop there. No, again, not could, may, might, already has, and it will get far worse from here on out. For the record, climate engineering everything isn't about some planet-saving benevolent endeavor. It's about covert power and control, nothing less. Again, in spite of all major weather monitoring agencies predicting a far above average hurricane season to impact the continental U.S., only a fraction of the predicted hurricanes actually developed, and every one was deflected away from the U.S. along a very similar trajectory. Just coincidence? Again, let's ask ourselves, are the powers that shouldn't be in the U.S. actually behaving benevolently, or trying to avoid further manipulated climate catastrophes that would only accelerate the American public's awareness of ongoing climate engineering operations? But they won't be able to keep the lid on the boiling pot for long, as all over the globe, climate catastrophe is unfolding everywhere. For anybody who bothers to look at what we are not told, systematically not told on any matrix media platform. This week I testified as an expert witness for Wyoming legislators for a bill to ban geoengineering operations. The last update I received from Wyoming this week is that the bill may pass, though it has been watered down. There was another bill on the Wyoming legislative agenda to stop localized cloud seeding. I provided input on this also. Any form of atmospheric environmental modification is toxic, atmospheric, damaging folly. It's a form of weather warfare. It's only a matter of scale. Again, the localized cloud seeding operations are meaningless against the backdrop of global climate engineering operations. The comparison, as I've stated before, an ant to an elephant. An individual named Augustus Dorico, the 25-year-old CEO of cloud seeding company Rainmaker and apparent friend of Peter Thiel and Bill Clinton, also gave testimony to promote what he does, which he compared at one point to doing God's work. During his testimony, Dorico claimed that he had tried to reach me many times without success. His claims are an absolute lie. Neither I nor Geoengineeringwatch.org has ever received a single communication from this individual. Not that we would have anything to say to him anyway. Back to what we collectively face, which will continue to worsen at blinding speed in the coming weeks and months. Record warmth to return to most of the U.S. following the most recent engineered chemical surface cool-down operations. Search the Engineering Winter section on the homepage of Geoengineeringwatch.org to learn so much more on this subject. Engineered snowstorms. It's not nature that caused the January 21st of this year. Remember that date, how critical that is to the bigger picture. The blizzard in New Orleans, blizzards along the Gulf Coast, blizzards in Florida, while it was above freezing and raining in much of the polar regions, Alaska, Greenland, Iceland, Siberia, above freezing and raining while there's a blizzard in New Orleans and Florida. So, chemical temperature whiplash cooldowns followed by ionosphere heater-induced jet stream manipulating high-pressure heat domes, weather and temperature whack-a-mole, the chemical and frequency transmission kind. More headlines, and keep in mind, devastating droughts and deadly deluges are hallmarks of climate engineering operations, the crown jewel weapon of the controllers. Devastate populations and their food production, then blame nature. From the UK Independent, slow-moving storm dumps as much rain as hurricane in parts of central Florida. Intense storms that stalled over the central Florida region unleashed nearly 20 inches of rain in 24 hours. Question: is the oil drilling infrastructure in the record-warm Gulf of Mexico still somehow completely immune to the formation of any storm whatsoever that could damage or slow down the drill baby drill operations? Yes, immune. Like a magic force field, the oil infrastructure is always spared. From France24.com, Vietnam City sets national record with 1.7 meters of rain in 24 hours. Stop and think about that. That's about 5 feet plus of rain, 60 something inches of rain in 24 hours. The central Vietnamese city recorded more than a meter of rain, again, closer to 2, in a 24-hour period, smashing a national record set over 2 decades ago, the Environment Ministry said Tuesday of this week. Yes, devastating drought, deadly deluges, hallmark of climate intervention operations, completely disrupted and derailed hydrological cycle, toxic rain, all of it's toxic. Not my opinion. Peer-reviewed science study proven there's not an uncontaminated drop of rain on planet Earth. I wonder why. And it's not just climate engineering. I want to make that clear. Again, we've been horrific stewards of the planet. Thousands and thousands of chemicals, incineration of something in the order of well over 100 million tons of carbon fuel a day. It's absolute insanity. And people think this can continue? They're raving mad. Next, this, and this is important, about Bill Gates. This is from the Epoch Times and many other sources. Tech billionaire Bill Gates' recent blog post stating that the doomsday view of environmental and social catastrophe from global warming is wrong. The statement from Gates appears to mark a significant shift in the debate over climate change. Stop. Really? Because Bill Gates follows his orders to calm the herd with pacifying lies, the entire debate of what's happening around us is somehow changed? Gates goes on to say that it will not lead to humanity's demise, quote unquote. Here's a question. Has Bill Gates ever told the truth about anything that matters most? Let's start with this. Has Gates ever, even once, mentioned the ongoing and accelerating climate engineering operations that are raging in our skies all over the world? Of course not. Only pretend geoengineering experiments to distract from the shockingly obvious reality in our skies. Has Bill Gates ever acknowledged the catastrophic harm that the pushing of his medical concoctions have caused all over the world? Obviously not. Yet when Gates suddenly, out of the blue, completely alters his former narrative about the state of the climate and the biosphere, parroting the current narrative of the most extreme loot, plunder, pillage, pollute, and poison administration ever, and that's saying a lot, how many will pretend that the new out-of-the-blue denial from Gates is some sort of irrefutable proof that there isn't anything wrong with the planet and the climate? It's all just a hoax, according to Gates, Trump, and their comic book character associates. Again, and I have no love for any president prior to this either. None. They are all puppets of the power structure, puppets of those who print the money. All the rest is a facade. It's not a red, blue, left, right, conservative, Democrat scenario. That's all orchestrated facade, divide and conquer. What will it take for more to figure that out? Again, the last U.S. president to actually draw a line in the sand with those in power, those who print the money, was JFK, and he did not live long after. Ponder that. Let's keep going. The bottom line. From the Independent Journal Review, Trump is grateful for Bill Gates' pivot, declares victory over climate change, quote, in headline. From that report, Gates critiqued the climate alarmist view on Tuesday, writing that there's a doomsday view of climate change that goes like this. In a few decades, no, we don't have a few decades. We would be lucky to have a few years if we stay on the current course. Cataclysmic climate change will decimate civilization. That's from the report. Fortunately, Gates says, for all of us, this view is wrong, end quote. Trump has been an outspoken critic of climate change policy, and in front of the United Nations General Assembly in September, called it the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world. Keep that quote in mind as we move into the coming weeks and months. And keep looking up, because this administration, like all those before it, would have us believe that what we are seeing in our skies is also a con job, a condensation trail scenario, right? Greatest deception ever perpetrated on populations. Same characters pushing this narrative now as it has always been. Yes, all just a hoax because Bill and Donald say so. Here's a tweet from Trump. Quote, "We just won the war on the climate change hoax. Bill Gates has finally admitted that he was completely wrong on the issue. It took courage to do so, and for that we are all grateful. MAGA! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. That's from Donald Trump. Let's continue with this. Gates further stated, so I urge that the community at COP30, again, global climate conferences where they don't do anything but force countries to actively or passively participate in climate engineering behind closed doors. He says at COP30 and beyond to make strategic pivots, prioritizing the things that have the greatest impact on human welfare. Gates wrote this on Tuesday. Continued, unfortunately, the doomsday outlook is causing much of the climate community to focus too much on near-term emissions goals, and it's diverting resources from the most active things we should be doing to improve life on a warming planet. Please stay with me as I try to put all of this into context, because all of it's truly mind-numbing. Anyone that's still clinging to the delusion that this administration or any other is going to do anything but continue ramping up the weather warfare, please wake the hell up. What did former carbon fuel industry executive Chris Wright have to say? He's the Department of Energy Secretary, and he also reacted on X Wednesday of this week, thanking Trump and Gates for, quote, helping to bring the conversation back to common sense. Wright has consistently said climate change is a real issue, though he argues energy poverty poses a greater threat to humanity. Really? So as long as we have enough oil and air conditioners, everything will be great. We just need more oil. Again, more air conditioners, bullets, bombs, ballrooms, and bunkers. The bunkers below the ballroom. I'll get to that shortly. You'll like that. So in summary, insect populations down 80 to 90% globally, terrestrial and aquatic. Global pelagic fish populations down 90+% globally. That's the ocean, food fish. Plankton down 90% in the Atlantic. The rest of the ocean's not far behind. No plankton, no people. Global wildlife populations down 75% in the last 40 years, and that's 75% from an already greatly depleted population. Trees have declined over 60%, I think about 67% since the dawn of civilization. The remaining forests are dying and incinerating by the day. The ozone layer is nearing functional collapse. UVC is now reaching the surface. That's an existential threat in and of itself. Climate engineering greatest causal factor with the destruction of the ozone layer, by the way. Weather chaos wreaking havoc around the world. Virtually the entire biosphere is now ubiquitously polluted with countless chemicals and climate engineering fallout. Dozens of countries are descending into chaos by the day. Tens of millions are starving, soon to be hundreds of millions, and then billions. I could go on, but you get the point. Nothing is fine. We don't have decades. We don't have years. Not on this course. Gates is the lowest form of human being. Do we dare even consider how much mortality he has already been a party to around the world? But how many will glob onto the Gates deception in order to fortify their own pathological denial? Again, no U.S. hurricanes for the entire season of what was predicted to be a record-breaking year of hurricanes in the U.S., and rare earth mineral-rich Jamaica gets the home run hurricane of the year. From Bill Gates to Joe Rogan and countless other morally bankrupt Matrix minions in between, all towing the line for the money printers, denying the climate engineering elephant in the sky while doing their individual part to feed the pathological denial of the majority population that desperately wants to be lied to, that desperately wants to be told that everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Move along. Bottom line. Again, how many will gulp down the Bill Gates scripted denial of extreme planetary damage because it fortifies their pathological denial? The same Bill Gates that has lied for decades about so-called safe and effective medical treatments that are anything but. The Bill Gates programs around the world that pushed the not so safe and effective treatments and have left a wake of misery and carnage. The same Bill Gates that has and continues to fund the release of genetically modified mosquitoes in countless regions. On that note, this new headline from phys.org. Ecologists report spread of disease-carrying mosquitoes and their hybrids in North America, spreading rapidly. Let's add this from sfgate.com. That's a California publication. Dangerous invasive species continue to spread in the Bay Area. The report then states officials are urging people to heed caution after an invasive species of aggressive day-biting mosquitoes have continued to spread in the Bay Area, spanning no longer than 1/4 of an inch and distinguished by the white markings on their legs. These mosquitoes are capable of spreading diseases to people like yellow fever, There's a list here of diseases. I'm sure there's many more. Not going to go into that, but bottom line is we don't have any idea what they're spreading. They're saying that people are at increasing risk as the insects lay their eggs in flower pots and pet bowls, and their populations continue to grow. The species of mosquito has turned up in at least 27 counties across California. It's everywhere now. And for those that think this is impossible, that our government would not use insects as a form of biological warfare, think again. It's a historical fact. Take the time to read Lab 257 about Deer Island, ticks that spread Lyme disease now and causing untold misery to countless individuals. Read that extremely well-researched book and then rethink your conclusions. This is business as usual. So, Bill, this question. Why would any rational, still mentally functioning person buy your most recent lie of public pacification till the moment of impact? Your claim that you were wrong all along, that there is nothing wrong with the atmosphere, the climate, or the environment, nothing to see here. Move along. And of course, never a single mention of the weather, chemical, and biological warfare raging in our skies and now on the ground, for the reasons I just cited and others. Here's a quick Maha footnote, Making America Healthy Again from ProPublica.com. Quote, is your medication made in a contaminated factory? Question mark. The FDA, the current FDA, won't tell you. That's the headline. Here's from the report. The agency's decision to conceal drug names on inspection reports has prevented doctors, pharmacists, and patients from knowing whether medications are being made overseas in tainted manufacturing facilities that could make them ineffective or unsafe. Not going to tell you. Across the board, any way of finding information on climate engineering, or chemicals being spread, or all of it's being gutted. And that's making America healthy again and making America great again? Really? Remember those mantras for all those that are clinging to that kind of propaganda. And again, this is not advocating for any former administration. Biden didn't know what planet he was on. Kamala Harris is mentally unfit for any post in any government, anything. It's not about that. It's about reality. People need to let go of their programmed dogma and their cult-like behavior and look at the truth. Well, it can still make a difference. And that's not for much longer. You're listening to the weekly installment of Global Alert News, the Bad News Broadcast, installment number 534. And yes, I'm very, very exhausted. I've never missed a week. I never leave my post ever. November 1st, 2025, this is Dane Wigington, your host. Global Alert News brought to you by Geoengineeringwatch.org, the largest and most visited website in the world on the subject of climate intervention operations known as geoengineering. Global Alert News is aired on numerous AM and FM stations around the country. If any radio station near you is willing to air the GAN broadcast in order to inform their listeners of what Matrix Media won't mention, have them contact us at admin@geoengineeringwatch.org. We'll grant them access to our weekly broadcast for free, of course. Recordings of the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Hour can be found on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org under the recent column and on the Dane Wigington YouTube channel. If you're on our email list, please put us on your email contact book so that our mailouts don't go to the spam files. Please help us to share the groundbreaking documentary, The Dimming, which fully exposes the climate engineering atrocities. Best way to share. Circulate the direct link to The Dimming by email directly from the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. Sharing directly helps us to overcome social media censorship. Always good when you're sending that link to an elected official, a media person, head of an agency, or an ag group, environmental group. Openly CC as many other aware and awake activists as you can so that the person you're sending the link to knows there are many listening to the conversation. That's how you start a spot fire of awareness. That's how you hold people accountable. When viewing our YouTube of The Dimming or Global Alert News or any other Geoengineering Watch video on YouTube, please subscribe, share, and comment. All of this helps us to circulate critically important data to a much wider audience. About reaching those that aren't looking up. Again, conversation starters. Geoengineering Watch awareness raising materials are so very effective at this. It's so much more effective than running out into the street, pointing at the sky, and ranting chemtrails. That doesn't really win many people over. They go search that term, find conspiracy theory and hoax, and they're done. We're playing chess. We need to learn how to play well. Share credible information, science terms, shocking satellite images, copy of federal gag order, illegal federal gag order, National Weather Service, and NOAA. So much information in that 20-page fact and photo summary booklet. Again, they can be found on our homepage. We pass those printed materials on, less than our cost of producing and shipping. our only goal, to push this issue to the full light of day while it can still make a difference. We also have Geoengineering Watch hoodies and shirts, new colors, most sizes now. We have scannable business cards. Nobody refuses those. They can go straight to our homepage or straight to the dimming. Shocking images on those cards. They are universally accepted with very few exceptions. Bumper stickers, very effective tool. Many people get inquiries from those that see that sticker on their car. All of this helps. All effective tools. Strike up a conversation on the climate engineering issue. Reaching a critical mass of awareness, it's the only way forward in this fight. When I started this journey over 20 years ago, I only heard my own voice coming back at me, crickets and frogs along the way. When I was able to reach enough individuals and help them to realize that they were going down on the same ship as me, that they had been lied to on a scale that's inconceivable, and they realized that they are fighting for their own lives, the lives of their posterity, they joined the battle in earnest. And that's the kind of army we need to fight this battle. If we can expose it, we can stop it from the inside out. We must awaken foremost our military brothers and sisters that are simply blindly following orders, no matter how destructive to themselves, their own family, their own posterity those orders are. Moving on, more headlines. First, again, always to those that are steadfastly committed to exposing and halting the climate engineering onslaught in our skies. We absolutely march together in this battle. It's our collective efforts that can still make a difference. Moving on, more headlines, more on circling the drain. From intelligencesure.com, California homeowners face $2 trillion shortfall when it comes to wildfire cover. The whole system is imploding. The wheels are coming off the bus. That should be obvious by now. And they're pumping up the complete facade stock market. It's mind-numbing how artificial the entire financial facade is, and people buy into it because once that collapses, everything is insolvent. Every single retirement, everything, businesses, everything is insolvent. The moment the artificial inflation of the markets comes to a halt, massive Ponzi scheme will implode. And in the meantime, the weather warfare continues. From DW News, Germany, fight over water intensifies as Colorado River dries up. U.S. states negotiators are battling over how to manage dwindling water resources in the Colorado River Basin, a lifeline for over 40 million people spanning across 7 states and 2 counties. Again, this is an ongoing story. It's only going to get worse quickly. And once these dominoes start falling, few can imagine the severity of what will take place then. Report says what was once a mighty river flowing from Colorado to the Grand Canyon all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico has been reduced to a trickle that barely reaches the ocean. Experts warn the river basin is at a breaking point, jeopardizing water security for major cities, harming endangered fish species, and putting some of the largest food producers in the U.S. at risk. Lakes Meade and Powell, the river's largest reservoirs, are critically low, a product of prolonged drought and rising temperatures. If water levels fall further, and they will, hydropower generation at the Hoover and Glen Canyon dams might curtailed, threatening energy supplies as well. Dominoes are falling. Wait and see. Climate engineering decimating all 3 primary forms of alternative energy, solar, wind, and hydro. Why isn't the so-called environmental community screaming about this, acknowledging climate engineering? But no, they won't. Too well programmed and too committed to, in the case of environmental groups, protecting their 501c3 nonprofits. And we have been told that by the attorneys of every single major environmental group, told Geoengineering Watch attorneys they won't address climate engineering because they don't want to lose their nonprofit status. Criminal hypocrisy. From Taxon.com, record autumn rains swamp harvest in China's grain belt provinces. Record drought, record deluges, all decimating food supplies around the world. Persistent and record-setting rains since September have flooded major grain-producing regions in China and derailing the autumn harvest and threatening the winter wheat sowing season. The onslaught of extreme weather follows a severe drought. Again, this is all over the world. Earlier this year, compounding the hardship for farmers already grappling with crop losses. From Gizmodo.com, dimming the sun like a volcano, ? This climate fix could backfire horribly. You think? Scientists are seriously considering mimicking volcanic eruptions to mitigate global warming. Should have covered this earlier, but here's just one more example from this last week. There are articles everywhere, but not acknowledging the reality that's ongoing in our skies. They say, but that comes with more than a few issues. Yes, it does. New research clarifies that the use of stratospheric aerosol injections, SAI, tiny sunlight reflecting particles dispersed in the atmosphere might be a very bad idea. And why does nobody in any of these articles ever mention, oh, by the way, we all get to breathe the 40 to 60 million tons a year of incredibly toxic, synergistically toxic nanoparticulates that obviously are going to rain down to the surface in our breathable air column, contaminating virtually everything already there. Moving on to a few more breaking headlines, ongoing scenario of oceans dying, collapsing. Beyond that, I'll get to the AI bubble that's about to burst. First, this, though. Again, I've spoken about this for many years. I've tried to trumpet the alarm on this for many years. Science community now finally admitting to it because they can't hide it. Science study title, Ocean Surface Phytoplankton are declining rapidly due to global surface warming. It's not just surface warming. The climate engineering operations are decimating the ozone layer. That's allowing destructive UV radiation, including UVC, to bombard Earth's surface, terrestrial and aquatic. Plankton have to feed in the upper layers of the water column to photosynthesize. They're being fried with destructive UV radiation, direct result of climate engineering operations. The report further states the oceans are losing their greenness. This is a result of phytoplankton decline. And keep in mind, no plankton, no people. Already have peer-reviewed study to prove a 90% decline in the Atlantic. And what are we watching on Matrix Media every night? Scripted political idiocy. Again, the movie Idiocracy, clearly a documentary. Haven't seen it? Watch it. Take the time. From climateandcapitalism.com, climate changes, again, ungreening the oceans. Chlorophyll decline shows a vital life support system is weakening. It's collapsing. Threatening food chains and climate. The fading ocean green, a sign of phytoplankton decline. Red flag for key ocean systems that sustain food chains and regulate the climate. Phytoplankton, microscopic organisms that have been creating a breathable atmosphere for the planet for more than 2 billion years, are under grave threat. Think about that. How long have I stated that on this broadcast? Why has it taken the so-called climate science community so long to admit to the truth? From cleantechnical.com, risk of Atlantic current collapsing much higher than previously expected. Week after week, I report headlines that are breaking. Oh, it's way worse than we thought. Far worse than expected, over and over, because they can't hide it anymore. And we have Bill Gates telling us, oh, it's no big deal. Go back to sleep. Get a bigger car that burns even more fuel. Get a bigger McMansion. A big boat. Let's build more bombs, bullets, bunkers, ballrooms. Total insanity. But wait, what about all those that are claiming there's more ice in the polar regions than ever before? That it's all a big lie, that we're at record ice and it's building up and building up. Absolute lie. I'm asking people to investigate. Don't take this person's statement or that person's statement and try to make a conclusion out of that. You can't. Do real investigation. You can see film footage of the polar regions and decide with your own eyes. That's how you come to a conclusion. In regard to the cryosphere, the polar ice, start with a film called Chasing Ice. You can find that online, documentary with no agenda, but film footage that cannot be argued. It's way worse than when that film was made. And let's add this to the equation. This is a new headline from this week from the observer.co.uk. Climate change, it's climate collapse, climate engineering fueling that fire. It's been going on over the polar regions for many decades. But the report headline says, clears northern route for first container ship. From the report, the melting ice sheet has opened up Northeast Passage, which brings fresh political and environmental dangers along with it. Container ships going unescorted across the North Pole. That's not a sign of more ice. How can people not see through the lies when we have this going on with film footage showing these ships going through regions unescorted in what was formerly, for the whole length of human civilization, packed with ice? No more. But wait, many would say this is a great thing. We can reduce shipping length of time and ship over the top of the poles. It's not a great thing when the Earth's air conditioners completely break down, when the formerly reflective ice that deflected 90% of the sun's incoming thermal energy, and now we have open water, dark water, absorbing 90%. That's thawing methane deposits on the seafloor that are literally exploding out of the seafloor, migrating to the water column. This has been happening in the Bermuda Triangle for many decades. That's what's causing the ship sinkings there. Massive seafloor methane deposits thaw, release. It aerates the water column like a bottle of champagne. Any surface vessel over that has no buoyancy. It goes to the bottom intact. Then that methane migrates into the atmosphere because it's lighter than air, starts to spread out and cover the planet like a layer of glass, trapping heat 120 times more effectively than CO2 over a 10-year time horizon. And the climate science community isn't really mentioning methane much, are they? And we have Bill Gates and Mr. Trump stating it's all a hoax. Again, as the coming weeks and months unfold, ponder the immensity of lies that are being pushed on populations, while climate engineering, again, systematically denied by this administration and all before it. But wait, AI will save us from ourselves, right? It'll save the economy with it, right? Ponder this recent report from MarketWatch.com. The AI bubble is 17 times the size of the dot-com frenzy. Think it's going to last? Think again. Let's add this from Medium.com. AI pullback has officially started. People are beginning to confront the reality of AI and they're not happy. That's the report headline. The gulf between actual AI performance and AI hype is deep and cavernous, and we have the data to prove it. A recent MIT report found that 95% of AI pilots didn't increase a company's profit or productivity. A recent METR report also found that AI coding tools actually slow developers down. Why? Generative AI models, even the very latest ones, often get things wrong and hallucinate, that's in quotes, which requires considerable human oversight to correct it. Consultants at Gartner, a company named in this report, attempted to quantify this and found that AI agents fail to complete office tasks around 70% of the time. Simply put, the amount of human oversight necessary, even for simple tasks, almost always undermines whatever productivity gains are made. In other words, in the vast majority of cases, it is more productive not to use AI than to use it. Yet despite all the evidence, AI continues to be shoehorned in everywhere and is being praised as the next industrial revolution. Total pathological delusion. That's the foundation of everything that surrounds us at this point. Planetary Truman Show. From oilprice.com, global oil discoveries collapse to decade lows despite frontier breakthroughs. And remember the fracking wells completely collapsing. They are very short-lived wells. It is a snake eating its own tail, literally. From this report, annual discovered volumes have fallen from over 20 billion BOE, that's barrels of oil equivalent, that's what that means, in the early 2010s to just 5.5 billion BOE in 2024, despite new frontiers. That's a crash of 75%. Think about that. And what's that translate to? The empire needs more oil. From theintercept.com, the U.S. isn't even bothering with its usual lies to sell its regime change war in Venezuela. From that report, the days of justifying American military intervention anywhere in the world are on their way out. Venezuela has for years been demonized in the media, becoming a favorite boogeyman of American political thrillers and rousing people's interest whenever anti-government protests rock the country. But Venezuela threatens no American interest militarily, has no ballistic missiles program with which to strike the American heartland, no weapons of mass destruction program, nor even accusations of such a program. Again, couple this with the oil discoveries collapse report I covered a moment ago. Venezuela is in the crosshairs because it holds the largest oil reserves in the world, greater than Saudi Arabia. Let's add this from theatlantic.com. The U.S. is preparing for war in Venezuela. And this from worldoil.com. The Trump administration has restored Chevron Corporation's ability to pump oil in Venezuela. How did they do that? From the report, this. Key to the arrangement was an assurance that no royalties or taxes would benefit the government of Venezuela. A White House spokesman did not immediately respond to a request for comment. How does that work? The American government gives permission to an American company to pump oil in a foreign country and they get nothing? How does that work? And again, it isn't just this administration. It doesn't matter what their political stripe. They've all done the same thing. This is called freedom and democracy at the point of a gun. And that's how it's worked for so very long, so many decades, so many administrations. This is not a political issue. This is simply how empires are run. So while the planet's imploding, we have this. to stimulate the economy. From Bloomberg.com, disaster recovery is an $8 trillion driver of U.S. growth. How wonderful. Let's climate engineer, destroy infrastructure, and then boost the economy by rebuilding it all. How long can that go on? The U.S. is now always paying to recover from disasters, and this is contributing a larger and larger share of GDP. Same with the medical community. You don't actually get anything from any of this. It's simply part of the facade. The U.S. economy has grown by 20 trillion since 2000, 29 trillion last year. About 7.7 trillion of that, or 36% of all that growth in GDP, is spending related to recovering from or preparing for disasters. Think about that. How can anyone think this can possibly continue? For the record, the core cause of inflation isn't just bad economic policies. It's ultimately tethered directly to unfolding and accelerating resource depletion and global ecological collapse. So how quick so many are to sign up and fight for empire and emperors, a pious act of believed patriotism to defend imagined freedom and democracy. Let's add another breaking report from this week, this one from thehill.com. Trump directs Pentagon to start testing nuclear weapons. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country already. Is China and Russia testing nuclear weapons? No. They're testing propulsion platforms, delivery mechanisms, systems, not bombs. Only North Korea has done that in recent history. And now we're going to start doing it again. What a great thing to do on a planet that's already dying. Let's add this and try to piece it all together. From the Sentinelintelligence.net, it's not a ballroom. It's a bunker. That's the headline. The Trump administration has torn down the East Wing to build a new ballroom. Despite all the noise, everyone seems to be overlooking a very important fact. As a piece in thehill.com mentions in passing, the East Wing hides a bunker. Tiny corners of the internet are whispering that the demolition has nothing to do with the ballroom. It has everything to do with upgrading the bunker. Trump's niece Mary, a vocal critic, has confirmed that the regime is simply using the ballroom as a cover for new bunker plans. Sources have also informed CBS News that the bunker upgrades will definitely happen during the ballroom's construction. It's not exactly surprising that someone like Mr. Trump would want an upgraded bunker where he plans to spend more time hanging out as the world falls apart. Everyone from Sam Altman to Mark Zuckerberg are doing it. Zuckerberg has reportedly spent some $300 million on his bunker, which just happens to match the amount Trump has raised to pay for his ballroom. Now, please listen carefully. Given everything that I just covered, take the time to watch a new Netflix release called A House of Dynamite. If you view it, you'll understand. There is no plan B. The human race seems to have lost its collective mind. I had a comment sent to us at geoengineeringwatch.org. In fact, this is not the first. Here it is. Quote, those carrying out all the atrocities can't be human because humans would never do this to each other. Really? This is exactly what human beings do to each other because of their cult-like behavior, because of their pathological behavior, from denial to lust for every material, anything, power. This is what the human race is at the moment. Let's hope it changes because we don't have long on the current course. A friend once asked me, how does the end begin? My reply, take a long, hard look at the wider horizon. The answer's right in front of you. It has long since been underway. Pathological denial of looming collapse is being further fed by soulless matrix manipulators like Bill Gates, and of course then parroted by Trump as proof of climate and ecological collapse being a hoax. Has either one of these individuals ever made mention of global weather, chemical, and biological warfare being a lethal current reality wreaking havoc on the planet and all life for over 80 years? Of course not. Drill, baby, drill. Burn, baby, burn. And pour the planet's last remaining resources into bullets, bombs, ballrooms, and the bunkers below the ballrooms. The bottom line, the unspun truth is far worse than the vast majority are willing to honestly examine, let alone face. Extremely near-term total collapse, ecological and thus civilizational, is already baked into the equation. No nuclear exchange is needed, though nuclear bombs and inevitable nuclear power plant meltdowns, 442 of them, are also a given. No rogue asteroid needed, no pole shift needed. The collapse of the reality we have all known is a given. So, can we salvage even a shred of sanity and purpose given the wider horizon that we collectively face? Short answer, yes, without question. From Tolley's The Power of Now, realize deeply that the present moment is all you will ever have. The past has no power over the present moment. Your entire life only happens in this moment. The present moment is life itself. And let's add this 2,000-year-old Stoic wisdom from Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And from Marcus Aurelius, Stoic philosopher of the same era, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Yes, be one. And what does that entail? Doing your best to do what you believe to be right, not based on programmed ideology, but on painful investigation of what far too few are willing to face, again, let alone try to make better. The narrow road is the path of unshakable solace, no matter what comes, face to the wind. Again, always remember and consider there can be no courage without morality and no morality without courage. Exposing and halting the weather, chemical, and biological warfare in our skies is the most important leap we can collectively make in the right direction at this late hour. And that effort will take all of us. Check the activist suggestions link on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org for specific instructions on how you can help to move this fight forward. Please, make your voice heard. Make every single day count. Time is not on our side. Until next week, this is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.